Hello, everyone, and welcome to the pointed discussion 7-Point Highlander The Hobbit set review. This is the set we're, I think, more excited for flavorfully than we are mechanically. At least Lockie and I are big Lord of the Rings Tolkien fans.
Yeah, very keen.
I have no strong attachment to this, I'll be real.
But I'm very excited for all the dwarves. But yeah, there's not as many cards in this set as in previous ones that we're going to talk about. I think both because we've restrained ourselves and because this set isn't as powerful. But there's still a lot that we are excited to talk about. We did miss Marvel. That is mostly my fault for getting a job that took up way more of my time than my previous role did. So
Imagine being employed.
yeah, it's kind of my fault for having a job. And that happened all at the same time as Marvel was coming out, so we didn't get to tell you how good the Fantastic Car is.
Try the Wasp, it's fun. To find the right one, there's a couple, but one of them's good.
Oh, no, I'm so sad I didn't get to look at like 100 Marvel glove shitters.
Yeah, you didn't get to hear about Henry's many rants about Mox Amber and Caracas from this set.
I might record that separately still, because I made some slides and I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Like, the number of one-mana legends from Oxamber roughly doubled with that set. So the amount of things you can do in that space probably a lot higher.
We're here to talk about The Hobbit, and we just wanted to give a bit more context to our set reviews. We're not really here to tell you what the good cards are, because most 7-Point players probably are already good enough to know when a card is good. We're kind of more here to talk about cards that we think add to interesting archetypes or niche decks, or things that might open up new archetypes or decks into playability, and sort of cards that we think slot into certain places.
Yeah, things that like expand the playable space of like things you can be doing in the format. Like, there's a lot of dwarves. Maybe a dwarves deck is playable now. Things like that, but sometimes a lot more niche and dumb.
I mean, I think, yeah, realistically, for most sets, the cards that are going to be, this will be an absolute staple in 7-Point. The review for that would be 5 minutes long, if that. In terms of like Marvel, right? It's like the Fantastica is very good. I don't know if there's any other cards from that set that would reach the level of like staple, and I think most sets in general, it's very rare that like a true like eternal power level staple gets printed.
Yeah.
Most cards in sets are going to be like the 16th creature or whatever you're adding to your deck. But it's always interesting talking about the cards that are in contention for those slots, because I think that's where a lot of the interesting choices come up.
And like the nature of 7-Point Highlander as a 60 card singleton format means that like any card you consider doesn't need to be the best in slot. It just needs to be slightly better than something you're playing. Or like it's all about opportunity cost. Like, something can be printed that is the fourth best version of the effect and still see play, right? So this is an eternal format where the bar for playability is technically lower, but you just need to make sure that you're surrounding it with the right cards. And that's a very complex thing that's lots of fun to try and work out.
Our first card up is exactly that. We start with Belladonna Took, which is 1 and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature halfling citizen that says whenever a token you control enters, you gain 1 life. If this is the first time this ability is resolved this turn. If it's the second time, draw a card. If it's the third time, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is a very sort of medium 2-drop that can slot into some very interesting decks and archetypes. There's obviously the food deck that we like to sort of joke about and is maybe good in here. But the fact that this is just a token, so works off your like Adeline or, your random treasures from like Ragavan.
Your Thraben Inspector?
Your Thraben Inspector.
Ocelot Pride.
Ocelot Pride is very good with Ocelot Pride and Ajani. Means that there is a lot of play to it. It's kind of hard to, you need to be getting that card draw for this card to be really worth it. So you can't just chuck it into any old deck that has those cards.
Can I make a suggestion? Gleeful Demolition and Kuldotha Rebirth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It is each token.
Yeah, it's true. It's not when you make one or more.
So those 2 cards will trigger all 3 of these effects at once, and then it will make all of them into 2/2s.
That is good. I had not thought of that at all.
I had not thought of that. I was looking at this and going like, oh, maybe you could like slot this into a more token-heavy version of something like Orzhov or Mardu, where you know you have your Ocelot Brides and your Ajanis and Orcish Bowmasters, but I kind of was like, it doesn't play quite how you want with, you know, particularly Ocelot Bride, where it's like, oh, you get the life after the trigger, so it's not like guaranteeing anything. But no, that's really interesting. If you're making multiple tokens at once, this does seem pretty silly.
Yeah, like you really want to be able to trigger this twice in a turn to be happy, and if you can trigger it 3 times, it's truly absurd. So you really want to be pairing this, I think, with things that can just be making multiple tokens. Like the Thraben Inspector is cool, but it's only going to gain you a life unless you can play your Thraben Inspector and your Novice Inspector, right? So I like the Caldor Rebirth and Gleeful Demolition lines because, well, since this doesn't say creature token anyway, you can play 3 different 1-mana make an artifact tokens in red and white, and then you can play both of those effects, and then you have a bit of a core going on. It is technically what I started playing the format with, and it was pretty decent. This is very good alongside the Raise the Alarm effects, and it's pretty low cost of inclusion, like 2-mana legendary creature, 2-mana white spells. There's a lot of them, so you really need to be building around this card, but it is a very powerful card to build around.
I'm just thinking in like a Mardu Pyromancer style shell. Imagine flashing back Lingering Souls with a Pyromancer out.
Yeah.
You get the the third trigger would happen with the resolution of the Lingering Souls. So you get 2/2/2 flyers.
Yeah.
Plus all the other stuff.
Seems really good. It is a payoff that is not itself an enabler, but it is it's also an engine. So I think it's really interesting. I think it'd be also really fun to play with. These effects are really fun to make work.
Yeah. Pretty good with things like Fable, the Mirror Breaker too.
Fable makes a token every turn as well. Yeah, Fable's really good here.
Next up, we have Bilbo's Gambit. Locky.
Bilbo's Gambit is a 1 and a white instant, which says return target spell to its owner's hand, but it has a gift from Bloomburrow. So if you gift a treasure, players can't cast spells this turn. This card seems really cool.
And this card's so good.
Yeah, obviously just returning a spell to its owner's hand as a rate, not great when we have things like Remand and Reprieve, but I think in the right context, you know, the fact that you can, you know, wait for your opponent on, you know, like a key turn to, you know, they cast their first creature, you give them the treasure and just go, okay, my turn now. It's not great if your opponent already has stuff on board, but I think early in the game, when people are developing, the fact that you can kind of skip your opponent's turn if you're not at risk of being attacked is pretty strong, but obviously I think it gets a lot worse the later in the game you get. A downside is the fact that it's both players means it's not great in combo because you can't use it like a silence effect to protect your own turn.
Yeah, this is much more of an anti-combo card than it is a combo card. This is a tempo card, which like wants to be played alongside. Like if you can play a deck that is happy to hold up 2 mana on a turn when you're scared, you're much happier with this effect, which is a bit iffy because like there's tension there where that means you kind of want to be playing some number of flash threats and you can't flash anything after you play this. You would have to commit your flash threat and then this and hope that they don't have an interactive spell to, like, I don't have a counter spell for this after the fact.
Yeah, I'm definitely a bit more skeptical of this card. I don't think it's terrible, but I think its applications are a lot more niche in terms of where it can actually fit in. Like, I don't think the white, you know, aggro sort of mid-rangey decks necessarily really want to play this unless they are more flash-based, like maybe the blue-white sort of ones do, where you can at least hold this up alongside either a traditional counterspell or a failure or something along those lines. I think if you're just playing this in like a white-red, white-black deck, it's not really gonna be great for you. I think it's, you know, it still is a fine sideboard option. I
don't think it's a main deck card, or you have to be really wanting this effect, like just be very metagame dependent to play this in your main deck. I think it's more of a sideboard card. There are a lot of decks in the format where a silence effect would be really good, but it feels really hard to know to like bring in a single silence effect and be confident it will do something. This card will do something in most matchups, right? For example, like you don't have to promise the gift, right? If
it can just be a bad reprieve.
It can be just bad reprieve if like they've actually tapped out and you know they won't be able to do anything after the fact. And then if that's the case, you can follow it up with your other flash threat for like on turn 4, for example.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the thing I'm most interested to try this in is in control, because I think if you think about the use case, right, if the gifting a treasure to like stop them casting spells, if you're countering their play on turn 2, they're probably not following that up with anything anyway. So it's kind of the same as any other counter spell, but you're giving them a treasure or you're just returning the spell for no upside and they replay it again. But if you're in a control deck where you can kind of know that you'll be in situations where the board is clear because you're running sweepers or a bunch of spot removal, imagine like, you're in a control deck, you're ahead, and you just kind of want to, develop the game out. You may be like, on their turn, first thing they do, you give them the treasure. Next turn, the next thing they do, Snappy gives them the treasure. All in the meanwhile, you're ticking up a planeswalker, hitting your land drops, and you're kind of like, developing your own game plan. I could see that kind of gameplay being good, because I think where it becomes different to a typical counterspell is when your opponent has a lot of mana, has a lot of things they could be doing. And that's where the, like, stopping their follow-up spells kind of differentiates it from something like Remand or Reprieve.
Yeah, I think this card's a good option.
Yeah.
Next up, we have Killy the Resourceful. Henry.
Killy the Resourceful is 1 and a white for a 1/2 legendary creature, Dwarf Scout. It is storied. If you control 3 or more artifacts, legendaries, and or saga, you have an enduring story for the rest of the game. So that's like the City's Blessing, but for me specifically. It has, as long as you have an enduring story, you may pay 0 rather than pay the equip cost of the first equip ability you activate each turn. And whenever another dwarf or equipment you control enters, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. So this is kind of like Pure Steel Paladin. It's got a bit more going on than Pure Steel Paladin. It is legendary rather than not. It costs a single white pip, which is a little bit better. It only draws you 1 card a turn, but honestly, it's kind of difficult to make Pure Steel draw more than 1 card anyway. And it's turned on permanently once you hit the enduring story, whether or not you lose the condition after that fact. This card also notably does trigger off dwarf or equipment. So like if dwarfs are a thing, then that's good. I think that this is like one of the many options you have if you want to play an equipment deck now. It's probably one of the better ones, I think. Paying 0 is a very, very good ability to have for like your Colossus Hammer, but even for your like Chainsaw. Those decks really want to be able to cantrip off of their things. There's a lot of dwarfs you already kind of want to play in that kind of thing already. That deck is not a tiered deck by any means yet, though I've played a decent bit of Stoneblade recently, and it's not nearly as bad as it kind of looked. It just has some unfortunately polarized matchups into combo. There are definitely the density of effects to cheat on equip costs in Highlander now. There's kind of the awkward thing of there's not a great density of things to cheat equip costs for. There's like Colossus Hammer, and then you're kind of stretching.
I think there's just a lot of playable equipment where if you are cheating their equip cost, it's still good. Like if you're re-equipping a like pre-war, like post reanimate, it's still very good. Umezawa's GT, there's still things where being able to take that tax off, even if it's not like the getting rid of the equip 8 from Colossus Hammer, it's not, you don't need that much value for this to still be good.
The awkward tension in my mind is between the cards which reduce your equip cost by 2 and the ones that set it to 0. Because the ones that set it to 0 really want you to play the Colossus Hammers, and the ones that reduce it by 2 do not. So I've always struggled trying to build this deck, trying to work out where I should put that line. Because I kind of don't want to play Colossus Hammer alongside things like Fervent Champion. But Fervent Champion really wants to be played alongside GT, and GT kind of wants to be played alongside a lot of the cards that want to be played alongside Colossus Hammer. So you end up with a lot of like A plus B, but some of your A's don't work with some of your B's, and that's pretty rough.
Just on a note on Storied, what a nothing mechanic, I've got to say. Like it's like a great flavorful mechanic, but 3 or more historic permanents, essentially what it is trivial. It's nothing.
Trivial. It's like, I have Urza Saga and this legend and
also
anything.
Almost all of the storied cards, at least at like rare or higher, are themselves legends. So it's like have 2 other artifacts or legends out.
This does count legendary lands, yeah?
Yeah.
Any historic.
Cool, then this will be online on turn 2 in many of the games I play.
Yeah. It's kind of, it's like even
more like permissive Metalcraft.
I'm gonna go turn 1. I Ganjo as my land. Play Colossus Hammer. Turn 2. Play this. I have my story. It's an 11-12.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. It's great. No. Storied is I think you can evaluate storied cards as if they are online
I
immediately.
expect they're gonna be basically always. You're never gonna struggle really unless you have. Like, if you're a deck that wants the storied cards and you don't have storied, you were losing that game anyway because you probably kept like a 1-0 land hand that doesn't cast any spells.
Like, the only thing that, like, you may want to do is be a 2-color deck so you can play more of the legendary lands, but all the legendary lands are awesome. There's so many good options.
But also just artifact lands, artifact tokens. Like, just like a Ragavan or a Tameo does story pretty much single-hand.
It sure does not say non-token.
One combat step in with one of those and then play a storied card and then you're there.
No, it's very silly.
Or like play Mox Amber and anything.
I would regularly have storied on turn 1 in many of the decks I have played.
Storied is ridiculously easy.
Yeah.
They may as well just have the ability.
Moving on to the Queen of Dale, which is another 1 and a white card. This one is a 2/1 legendary creature, human noble, that says whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, you recruit. And recruit is draw a card, then discard a card. If you discard a non-land card, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token.
It's Connive, but for white.
Connive, it is essentially just like the other half of Connive. If, like, you know, Connive is going tall, this is going wide on looting. You know, this obviously has shades of, like, Ledger Shredder, but going wide instead of going tall, except it's on a 2/1 with no abilities as opposed to a 1/3 with flying.
And also, you can't trigger it yourself.
You can't trigger yourself.
Legendary.
I think this is a fair bit worse and competes with a lot of other good 2-drops you could be playing.
Yeah.
You know, you will absolutely be triggering this a lot. Like, your opponent's not going to not be casting their non-creatures. Bowmasters don't exist and can't hurt you.
This is a card that I think
I
Bowmasters
evaluate
very much
this
exist
as
for and can't hurt them.
those cards that die to make a 1/1 when they in the like
Sure,
it's like
yeah,
your
it's like-
opponent's first non-creature spell will be a fatal push or bolt
Yeah.
on this, and then you'll get your 1 recruit trigger, and then that's a bit cynical. I think the card is fine. I just expect it probably eats a removal spell. You get a loot and maybe a token.
Yeah.
And that's probably okay on rate in that, like, at least behind the body, you got some card selection.
I would say
Eight
one of
removal.
the archetypes, like typal archetypes, that I think is being helped in this set is humans.
That's true.
And the fact that this is a good legendary human that makes human tokens is pretty relevant.
Can I sell you a flowering of the white tree?
Yeah, exactly. I think there is merit to it there, but I don't think this is just going to go in generic white decks.
Yeah, I think that you need to be playing this in a deck that very heavily is leaning on Skull Clamp and or Flowering of the White Tree. And if you're not doing both of those things, you should not be playing this.
Yeah. I mean, humans also has some cards that, you know, give ward to your humans that can help protect this.
So it's notable that the recruit 1/1s are also soldiers, if that ever gets there. That deck's, like, pretty close. It just is another typal deck that's not really doing anything to differentiate it, is the thing.
But look, I think humans gets a big buff from this set.
Yeah, we'll talk about some
We'll
good
talk about
humans
later.
later. Next up, we have Bilbo, Thief in the Night. Lockie.
Alright, Bilbo, Thief in the Night, is 1 and a blue for a legendary creature, Halfling Rogue. It's a 2/2 and says, spells you cast from anywhere other than your hand cost 1 less to cast. When Bilbo attacks, you may cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell from your graveyard. If an instant or sorcery spell cast this way would be put into your graveyard, exile it instead. So, we talked about cards where most people can recognize when they're probably going to be staples. This is one of them. Dreadhorde Arcanist, a card that is very good. It's pointed in Highlander. I know people often say that it shouldn't be a point, but Dreadhorde Arcanist is still a very strong effect if you build around it. But what if you didn't need to build around it? What if you could just play a creature and it just let you cast whatever? Some really cool things about Bilbo, it doesn't target, so not vulnerable to Grave Hate in the same way. You know, things like Snapcaster Mage, you have to target a spell to give it flashback. Your opponent could respond to the trigger by exiling it with something like Deathrite Shaman. Bilbo is just, you attack and it can be whatever. Your opponent doesn't know until you put the spell on the stack.
The reason it's like that, by the way, is so that it can cast adventure spells from the graveyard.
I was going to mention, it
Yeah.
does let you cast adventures. Notably, those won't go back to the graveyard, so you can then cast the adventure creature from there. So,
Cool.
get your Brazen Borrowers back into play.
Also, it just
Pretty cool.
just lets you cast Mishra's Ball every turn. It's
Yeah.
like
It sure does.
it's
Yeah, the artifact doesn't go.
the artifact, because that would be a weird, hard thing to template.
Yeah. Or even just things like, I'm probably going to play this in unfair combo decks as well for the cost reduction.
Breach.
If you have your Underworld Breach or, a Past in Flames, your
Mystic
your
Forge
Will,
top.
Mystic Forge Top, it's an enabler for that combo, which I'm very excited for. So you get to play it in those decks and loop your Baubles, Chromatic Stars, things like that.
Also,
To just draw, while you're developing your combo.
Also, most importantly, it's a rogue for Season Dungeoneer.
It is a rogue for Season Dungeoneer.
Or for Prowl spells.
Oh,
yeah.
oh.
Prowl spells. That's much cooler.
That's much cooler, but it's cool that you
That
can
one
get it in
probably
for
isn't
sure
gonna
with
cover.
Season Dungeoneer.
Bilbo is really good. Put it in decks that play blue.
Yeah.
And have some
Something-
amount of instants or sorceries.
Or
And even
artifacts.
or artifacts, yeah. It's really just
another
good
Emery
decks.
as well in
Yeah.
2.
like it has to attack, has to get through, which that is
Doesn't even yeah.
I mean, it doesn't have to get through. Obviously, if
You can just sacrifice Bilbo and then cast the thing anyway if you need to.
That's true.
Notably, that you get to cast a spell on attacks as well, right? So if you hit a removal spell, you can remove the blocker that would have killed Bilbo just while you're doing that. You do have to pay for it. I think that's the main difference from Dreadhorde Arcanist.
Yeah.
It costs one less, which is great, but you are still paying for it.
You can just pay life for your Dismember.
You sure can.
But yeah, this card's good. We don't need to talk about it
Yeah.
too much more. Next up we have Elrond Moonreader. Henry.
Elrond Moonreader is 2 and a blue for a legendary creature Elf Noble. It's a 3/3. It has, whenever you activate an ability of a creature, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. And I don't think it will come up much, but it also has 5 blue. Exile up to 2 other target non-land permanents you control. Return those cards to the battlefield under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So the main important thing here is that this is an elf that draws a card when you tap an elf for mana. I think that's the main thing that matters. It does also trigger off of all the things you could play in most of the Nadu shells, and that's probably relevant for drawing a card on yours than theirs.
I honestly probably wouldn't have put this on the list, except for the fact that Loki has way overperformed from my expectations. And it turns out that just these even the once per turn draws on cheap, finely statted creatures is kind of just good. And obviously, yes, this is an elf that the moment you tap any dork lets you draw a card.
Yeah.
And that's just great. But yeah, there's just so much incidental, activated abilities, random things. This is a lot more niche than Loki is because it doesn't trigger off any ability. It's only specifically activated abilities of creatures, whereas Loki doesn't care about where the source is from.
So it's very good with the baubles.
Yes.
But also I don't know if you ever played against a Nadu player where they don't have the whole combo, but you still just lose the game anyway because they're drawing 2 extra cards a turn cycle having Loki or the Final Fantasy card I forget that does a similar thing, or anything with their ability where if you just have Elrond and the Nomad or even just 2 mana dorks or a Deathrat Shaman and you're drawing 2 extra cards a turn cycle and you have a bunch of stuff, you're probably winning that game anyway. You don't need to be able to combo off and draw your entire deck.
Yeah, one deck that I've kind of been thinking about is a slightly more mid-rangey, grindy version of Elves that explores the full 3-colorness that Elves has moved into, of black and green as its ancillary, blue and black as its ancillary colors. And this just being in an Elves deck that lets you sort of get more card advantage and sort of, grind a little bit better without just sort of doing the turbo elf ball thing. Is, I think, very interesting.
Yeah, I think this card reads not as great as it will play. It will probably play a lot better than it reads. And I think it slots pretty good into Nadu. I think it will struggle to find a home much else. Technically Elves, but Elves is Nadu.
I think it's really just for that deck, but it's going to be really good in that deck. I think just drawing 2 cards a turn cycle is good and very easy to enable.
All right. That brings us onto the most decrepit old bird,
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
which is maybe the
I
best,
know,
maybe the best name in the set. I'm a big fan of the gigantic big bear, but most decrepit old bird up there.
Yeah.
It is 1 blue for a 1/1 bird with flying and threshold. This creature gets +1/+1 as long as there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard. How do you put those cards in your graveyard? With its adventure, Speak Secrets, for
Wait,
1 and a
Chris.
blue. That is a sorcery. It mill 4 cards, then put an instant or sorcery from among them into your hand. So kind of a better anticipate in the right deck of just, dumping cards in your graveyard, picking up, probably choosing between 2 or 3 in the right instance. And then having this 1 mana 2/2 flyer realistically in most instances.
I think that Bilbo is probably the best card in this in the set. I wouldn't be surprised if this card sees very close to the same amount of play.
I think this is probably the second best
Probably.
card. It kind of fixes a lot of the problems with cards like Delver of Secrets, where it's like, I really want my cheap flyer that gets big and hits my opponent on turn 1. I really don't like drawing that card after the first few turns of the game. Whereas like, you're pretty much always going to be happy to see most decrepit old bird. Partly because the art is amazing, but also because, later in the game, if you're in a deck like Grixis or Flood Moon or something like that, you get to cast the adventure, you can find another piece of interaction, or a stock up, or a flow state, or some, expressive iteration, all of these other cards. You get to fill your graveyard for, your Goyfs, your Nethergoyfs, your,
Murktide.
Murktide, as well as the most decrepit old bird.
The threshold does work with Murktide. No, that's okay.
But
I think you're willing to give up +1/+1 to buff your Murktide. It's probably okay.
4 cards is a lot. It's like,
Yes.
you'll be back to threshold pretty quick in those decks.
Y'all seen Malevolent Rumble?
Yeah.
Because goddamn, this is the opposite of that, and that card's great.
Yeah, I
fun
really
part.
like this bird. It's okay to just run the card out. You don't always need to cast the adventure.
That's fair, but I think I would almost always be wanting to cast the adventure. Just like there's a lot of things that punish you for a 1 toughness thing in the first couple turns of a game. Like mostly Ren and 6 and Bowmasters, but like those are around a lot. And like a 2/2 flyer is like really good in a lot of matchups. I think the other thing is that this card often will want to be played in decks where they're winning because of a little bit of card advantage over time. And that 2 mana spell is effectively 1 blue, draw an instant or sorcery, and a 1 mana, probably 2/2 flyer, which is a lot better than what this card will be in the early game. But it's not incredible.
I think that
It's
might
not
be
plus, I mean-
also partly a factor of the kind of decks we play, where you tend to like to play very like
Yeah.
creature focused, like mid-rangey
That's fair.
decks. Whereas like I'm looking at this from the combo player perspective of like, this thing's just gonna start hitting me for damage really quick, and I don't like that at
That's
all.
fair. I
Like
think-
I've died to a lot of Dragon's Rage channelers that got in for 1 or 2 because they played at turn 1, but it meant that as soon as Delirium was online, they just started bashing, and my
That's fair.
that plus got me in Price of Progress range or something like that.
I think the weirdness there, though, is that like Darcy enables itself over time by being in play, where this card needs to be cast the adventure to enable itself.
But you know what's pretty sick with this? It's picking it up with Kaito.
Oh yeah, no, this is a sick card to pick up with Kaito.
I would not be surprised if couple more cards like this, you get some
Yeah.
good, get a couple more ninjas in there. I expect to be pretty miserable when this gets picked up with Kaito in the future.
That's gonna
Yeah,
suck.
that is gonna suck. That's really great.
This card also plays incredibly well alongside Bilbo.
Yep.
Sure.
I mean, it does.
No, it does.
it
Genuinely,
does.
it's like, oh no, I traded off my 2/2. Anyway, it's back.
Yeah.
Like you
For
get
not that much mana.
It's gonna cost you 2 blue mana to
Yeah.
adventure this from the graveyard and then get the.
It's very good.
Yeah, good card.
Next up, the Lord of the Eagles.
Oh, I love this card. I have no idea if it's good, but I love it. The Lord of the Eagles is 7 blue for an 8/8 legendary creature bird noble with flash and flying. This spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control with flying. It's just a humongous bird. It's
Now-
so big.
Now it's my turn. I hate this. This card stinks.
I agree.
What is like?
This is a Henry
This is
Henry
such a-
contribution.
I think I put this in because I knew Henry was high on it, but like these.
Oh boy!
If I have 7 flying power, I get a 2 mana 8/8
Oh my
flyer.
like the definition of a win more card.
It really is.
The only situation where I would be interested in playing this is if there was like a flying equivalent to like Slumbering Trudge or something.
Sure, it's like super cheap,
It's
high
super
power.
cheap, high power, and it comes with stun counters. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I just play that, and then my Lord of the Eagles costs 2 mana and I win the
Yeah.
game. And it's like, I think the closest equivalent to that is like Sleep Cursed Fairy or whatever, and then it's like, I get a 5 mana flyer.
Yeah.
It's like,
I really, if I'm paying more than 3 mana for this, it's like I'm not happy.
but if you, and the thing is,
Maybe at 4.
but even in that situation, you have a bunch of flying power on the board.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're doing great.
So, like, specifically, the only place I think that this would actually be a consideration is that Azorius Legends deck I was thinking about, because that deck does want to play a bunch of flash, it does want to play a bunch of flying, it does want to play Flowering the White Tree to buff your things to make this cheaper. Like,
But even then, right? You let's say you have 7 flying power in play. Is what you want more power, or would you rather just any interaction at all to help get over the line? Because you're already winning in like three
This
swings.
is-
in my mind, you're doing both because you have a flash. Like, it's flash, right?
It is
so
one
you
of
get
those,
tap
like,
both.
this card is very reminiscent of Sunderflock from Lorwyn, in that it is 9 mana, double blue that cost reduced for a creature type. But Sunderflock bounces all of your opponent's creatures,
And this card's just huge.
and this card is just huge and gets blocked by a Baleful Strix or a...
Oh, yeah. This card's gonna suck.
Yeah.
It's gonna be really bad, but I'm gonna enjoy losing a locals with it if I can get the deck
I
together
can't
and
wait
have the
to
energy.
remove your creatures in like the course of a normal game Magic, and you will have this card in your hand for the entire game.
And I'm gonna pitch it to Subtlety or Force of Will because it's a blue card, and that's the thing.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's what people say when there's a blue card that's bad, they want to play, right?
Moving on.
Moving on.
To a good card. It is Azog, Moria's Ruin. Is 2 and a black for a 1/3 legendary creature, Goblin Soldier. When Azog enters, destroy up to 1 other target creature. Its controller amasses Goblin's X, where X is that creature's power. If you controlled that creature, draw a card. And amassing goblins is the same as amassing orcs or zombies from War of the Spark. Of you create 0/0 and put that many +1/+1 caps.
It's actually cooler because they're goblins.
Actually,
It
it's
is
not
true.
quite that if you already control an army, because it adds the creature type and puts the counters on the army, regardless of what kind of army it
Sure,
was.
that is
That
relevant
actually is
because
relevant
this will
because-
definitely see play alongside Orcish Bowmaster.
Yes, so it adds Goblin as a creature type to your Orc army from Bowmaster and puts a counter on that, if that is there in
Yeah.
play.
This card obviously is good in Goblins. Goblins didn't really need another 3-drop. They have a million good 3-drops, but I think this one is very good. It's interesting how much play this may see outside of a Goblins deck. It is, in like, say, like the Black-White Taxes deck, it's really competing with Skyclave, and Skyclave hitting non-land permanent, I think, pushes it a lot over the edge, versus, this being able to kill any creature, but only creature. The being able to sort of sacrifice your own creature to make army and then draw a card is very relevant. It's more relevant in Goblins than it is anywhere
I
else,
think
though.
that's the main mode you're going to want in Goblins,
Yes.
is turning something into a card. I think this is really, in Goblins, you're playing this as a flexible, draw a card, sack a thing, get some triggers, make a big Goblin, and kill Baragorth if they have it.
Yeah.
And
There's a lot of
otherwise,
good
it's not really don't wanna hit your
aristocraty
opponent's
goblin
face.
cards these days as well. Like, Lorwyn added the black-red, like, blood artist for goblins. And things like that. So yeah, definitely being able to destroy your own goblins is very relevant.
Pretty fun that you can Caracas this. Like, this is a if you can play that, if that's like the main thing that makes it consideration in taxes over, not over Skyclave, like alongside it maybe.
As another 3-drop.
The thing that I like about the Amass Gold, like the main thing is it makes a token, which means that you can clean it up pretty easily with your Felia or bounce effects like that. So that plays pretty nicely where you can get in this play pattern of Felia Azog, kill your thing. Next turn, Felia the token. Your opponent plays another thing. You get to kind of rinse repeat where same pattern you have with Skyclave, but this is another option for doing that.
But it does need to be specifically in a metagame where there aren't a ton of non-creatures that
You care
really
about.
care about.
Yeah.
Which
in a,
not common in Highlander.
yeah.
but
But the fact that you
interesting
can get
options.
things that cost more than 4, so it can get a Murktide, hard cast elemental, things like that.
And definitely creating a ground blocker is a lot more relevant for those decks. Where like if you're getting rid of a big flyer, and even if you are creating a 7/7 from Murktide, 7/7 that you can chump as opposed to a 7/7 that's killing you.
It makes a big difference.
And also killed, like, I don't know, they natural order or reanimate a big thing.
Mhm.
The fact that they can just turn that into a goblin.
Yeah.
Pretty nice. I don't know, it's definitely interesting. A card that I kind of initially read and was like, I'm not that sure high on it, but the more I think about, like, the play patterns, I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
That brings us to our only other black card, Golem Riddlemaster, Lockie.
Alright, Golem Riddlemaster is 1 and a black for a legendary creature, Halfling Horror. As Golem enters, choose odd or even. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with the mana value of the chosen quality, choose one that hasn't been chosen, put a counter on Golem. Each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. Draw a card.
It's a 3/1.
It's a 3. So, play patterns with Golem, you probably choose odd so that when they cast a removal spell, you get to draw a card, or, you know, your opponent casts a cantrip before they cast a removal spell, maybe you get an extra little bonus, draining them for life. Overall, Golem is a card that puts, like, a lot of the decision space, like, it gives your opponent a lot of decisions around to play around it, which I think means it's probably not very good.
I think if this card was printed like 3 years ago when Lord of the Rings came out, it would see play. The problem is there's just so many good 2-drops, and especially black 2-drops, that it's competing with, that it's kind of a hard one to justify in your deck.
The other thing is that there's an annoying number of 2-drops that punish this, so you're going to choose odd, and then they're going to play Ren and 6 Bowmasters, and it's going to die immediately, and you're going to feel like an idiot.
The thing is, in my mind, that's kind of the only ones, because if they spend a 2-mana removal spell on this, you're kind of fine with that. You are also always choosing odd. There's simply, I don't think a single scenario I can think of where you want to choose even.
If Mental Misstep has taught us anything, it's that there's
A lot of 1-mana spells.
most decks are like a third
Yeah.
1-drops, or like, you know, a very high number of 1-drops.
I don't like this card, but I also suspect that if I played with it for a bit, it would be fine.
Yeah, I think it's very fine. It probably draws a card, and it probably is like 2 mana.
If it had more relevant
get
creature
a card.
types.
Maybe this is an Eclipse card? This is kind of an Eclipse card.
I guess.
Like a 3/1 is like
I
a
just
2-mana
look at it-
3/1 is still kind of aggressive enough that there's a
Yeah.
lot of decks that will
Oh, no,
not
it-
like this.
The card is totally fine. It's totally playable. I think if you put it in your deck, it will do things. It's just competing with Orcish Bowmasters, Emperor of Bones, Douthie Voidwalker. People have been playing the new Black Widow. That card's
Yeah,
pretty
even
good.
like May
Yeah.
from
From Avatar.
Avatar. And better.
There's just so many good black 2-drops, and
Also,
and again, it's like, I know we said it before, but like, I look at anything with 1 toughness and just think Orcish Bowmaster.
Yeah.
Like, it's just gotta feel really bad when you get hit by that.
This card probably plays a lot better than it feels to play, because when you get got by it, you feel like an absolute idiot. But like you shouldn't, but you will, right?
yeah, we've also, we've done a good job of not mentioning it every legend, but this is a really horrible one to get Caracas. Like, this is one where if
But
you're opposing
It's a
Caracas
pretty
is so
good one
bad.
if you've gotten max value from it.
Yeah,
You can reset it and
reset
start
it.
getting cards again.
It's true.
In this magical scenario where your opponent somehow cast a bunch of odd spells that don't kill Golem.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, hey, if your opponent's deck is entirely cantrips, this card's great.
Also, there are still decks out there that, it's not non-creature spells, so it's still, it will still trigger off them playing their random 1-mana creatures.
I could see in like a very combo heavy metagame, maybe Golem is like a good 2-drop, but I think it's pretty bad in the mid-range matchups where they've got a bunch of removal and things that can just trade with it or ignore it.
I would try this in Eclipse. I don't think I would try it anywhere else.
Okay, cool.
Next up, we have Bothersome Noisemaker, Henry.
Bothersome Noisemaker is a very funny art goblin. It costs 1 and a red for a creature goblin bard that is a 2/2. It says whenever you cast a non-creature spell, amass goblins 1. I don't get it. I feel like the Pyromancer cards that exist, I think that going bigger off of those is worse than going wide off of those. And I don't see why like a Goblins deck would want this. I don't get this card.
I think this is not very good in Goblins.
Okay.
Mainly because you just don't run many non-creature
No,
spells.
like
You are
just
kind of
spells.
priced into running,
Goblins.
like near as close to like 30 spells that say Goblin on them as possible.
Yeah.
But the thing I think that's interesting about this, right, is any like prowess. This isn't really a Pyromancer, right? Where it's like, yeah, you make one thing, If you're in a deck where you're sacrificing the tokens you're making for value, it's functionally very similar to a Pyromancer, but this is something that lets you go very tall off casting a lot of non-creature spells in like a prowessy deck, right? But the thing with that is you're always putting all your eggs in one basket when you have like creature that gets the counters, right? Whereas in this case, you know, you play a bunch of cantrips, you get your big creature and attack, and they kill it, and then you can kind of do that again, right? Whereas, I don't know, having played like prowess decks, you do end up in a problem sometimes where you have a bunch of the, you know, you're a deck that has to run a low creature count kind of by definition, so you have all these like cantrips and things.
Yeah, okay.
So you do often run out of threats. That being said, it doesn't have any evasion,
and it
which
doesn't make a thing with evasion.
and it doesn't make a thing with evasion. Like the army is really what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because this is just gonna sit there, and the goal really is just hit with the big goblin every turn until they're dead. I do like the fact that, let's say you cast this and you cast a few zeros, and you know suddenly you've got, you know, this nice like dual threat of you have a big goblin army, and you have this thing that threatens to continue to make goblin armies. Your opponent has a decision of like what they need to remove.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point.
I don't know if it gets there, but I do think it is a card that we haven't seen before. Like it is not. I wouldn't necessarily play this in like a pyromancery deck, but I do think it provides like an interesting kind of like dual threat.
Yeah.
In a way that we haven't really seen with a card like this.
It probably needs like one more thing going on for this card to be good enough, but I definitely see where you're coming from. I can see how those play patterns are quite beneficial to the existing prowess decks, and that like it being a threat that creates another threat and sort of both demand answers is pretty good. The trickiness being that like if this card gets answered before you amass goblins big enough to make the other threat also something that demands an answer, it's not really doing that. And the way that prowess is currently slanted, it's quite aggressive, but it then has like some late game turns to I'm thinking like leveling up Storm Chaser's talent, for example, where like it tries to turn to like a more value oriented deck, and this card's kind of trying to play that middle ground, which is not really I think where prowess wants to be. But maybe I see where you're coming from now. Okay.
I'm most interested to try this in Gruul Prowess, which I know some people have played a variant that has a bunch of fling effects, and I think this is really good in exactly that deck, where you get to just make a big thing that you don't care about flinging every single turn. You just attack with your big goblin, berserk it, fling it, if it gets countered, it doesn't matter, I'll do it again next turn. Sure. It's very niche, the decks that want it, but making repeatable, expendable big idiots is pretty appealing.
That's cool.
Next up, we have Beyond the Fierce. Yeah. 3 green for a 6/6 legendary creature, bear shapeshift warrior. It has trample, and other bears you control get +2/+2. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a trample counter on up to one target creature you control. It becomes a bear in addition to its other types. Then if you control 3 or more bears, draw 2 cards. So first off, yes, this is 5 mana, which is a lot of mana in Highlander. It's in green, so obviously that's slightly mitigated. I'm quite excited about this because we've been working on this sort of Golgari mid-rangey initiative deck, and part of the power of that deck is the kind of fair natural order game plan it has of natural order is in the deck, and it's, you know, if it's getting something, it's often getting a 4-drop. It's either getting one of your initiative creatures or Ouroborroid or Ice-Till. And we also have sort of Alpha Deathclaw as like the big sort of bigger thing to get with more impact. And it's been very good as sort of having a natural order deck where you can just cast all of your targets in a very reasonable manner. And this sort of slots into that kind of well. You know, coming in, immediately giving another creature essentially +2/+2 and trample. And even if this gets removed, it still keeps the trample, which is very good for, you know, your Barrogoyfs. The deck already playing like Barrogoyf and 6 as like 3s that are really good for this to target with its ability is, you know, very relevant. And even just making a dork a little bigger is, you know, going to be good on defense. The card draw thing is neat, but, you know, does essentially need it to survive, it and the creatures it's targeting to survive for at least one turn cycle.
Only needing one turn
Turn
cycle.
cycle isn't huge.
Yeah,
really gonna
it's
kill them.
very much a card that is like, you need to answer me, otherwise you will die. It being a 6/6 trample is very good. It kind of the common removal spells, it's really only like swords, like the white ones, like Swords of Solitude and a Delirious and a Holy Heat, that is going to get it. Like, it dodging Dismember is great, and obviously it dodging Fatal Push. It kind of being 5 mana makes it, I think, a lot better in that instance.
I agree. I like 5 mana creatures.
And like in a deck with Badger Maul Cub and, you know, Crystal Vein, City of Traders, lots of dorks.
Dark Ritual
5
is-
mana is very doable.
Yeah, like,
Turn 1 Dork, turn 2 Land, Dark Ritual, cast
I
this.
could even see if you're in a board stall, you just start like turning your dorks into bears so you get the trigger.
yeah,
It's
absolutely,
pretty quick.
absolutely. Like, I think you're gonna get a lot of value off this, and if you're not playing against a white deck, it's gonna be pretty annoying for your opponent to try and deal with.
So I know this is a different deck, but Charlie, have you considered this as a warrior for Season Dungeon?
I did consider it as a warrior for Season Dungeoneer. I did notice that.
Okay.
I must also ask, I assume you've done the search, are there any other playable bears?
Ursine Monstrosity.
Ah, interesting.
Beginning and end of list. That is kind of the only good
And
playable bear.
shapeshifters, I guess.
Like Masked Vandal, maybe?
Yeah, obviously there are changelings that are still somewhat good, but I don't think I want to build into the bear part of this card that much.
The beauty of
That's
this card
fine.
is you don't need to. It make bear.
Yeah, entirely incidental.
Yeah, I'm really high on this card, probably more than I should be, but I just think it's got so much value out of it.
I think the way this plays is if you've got a big board, it will win the game pretty quickly, and if you're in a board stall, then it'll naturally get to the card draw, kind of.
Yeah.
As a, you know.
And you know,
As it goes.
going turn 4 Ouroborid into turn 5 Bjorn sounds pretty good to me.
Yes, seems pretty good. Boy.
But also if you're untapping with Ouroborid.
Yeah, you're typed to Aurora, you're already winning.
Next up, we have Bilbo, fellow conspirator, Lockie.
Alright, so Bilbo, Fellow Conspirator, is 2 and a green for a legendary creature, halfling citizen. If you would create a food token, instead create a food token and a treasure token. Don't need to spend too long on this one, but just those replacement effects are very, very silly. Academy Manufactor has been kind of the backbone of a bunch of nonsense combo decks in modern and like commander decks and things for, you know, since it got printed. This does the same thing. It's also a halfling, which is not completely irrelevant because there's some random cards that care about them.
Oh, we'll see one later.
Yeah.
I mean,
It doesn't do the same thing, but it does kind of do the best one of the things, right? Making treasure when you're making.
Clue is usually like, yeah, it's an outlet, I guess, when you need to think. But the main thing is the treasure, right? Like,
yeah,
Because food is the easiest one to generate large quantities on, and then treasure is the like payoff for having done that a lot of
yeah.
the time.
And if you have Academy Manufactor, it's like, oh, I'm making a food and a treasure, and then you can stack the replacement
And
effects.
I think this sort of combo-y deck actually already has a lot of halflings in it because of the previous Lord of the Rings set. There is that Peregrine.
Yeah, there's a Peregrine that does a similar thing where I
Yeah.
think it's if you make a food, you make an extra food.
Yeah. And
Farmer Cotton's the best one.
yes, Farmer Cotton. And yeah, and so there's this sort of like weird like Abzan token combo deck sort of, and there's a bunch of different, you know, A plus Bs in there, or A plus Bs plus Cs. There is kind of an interesting like, how many of those can you just throw in a deck before it's not good anymore? You know?
Yeah. Shout out to Food Midrange, which I don't know if it wants that card, but I think I've seen.
We're not the experts on
We're
that.
not the experts on Food Midrange, but I think from gameplay I've seen it play those replacement effects that make extra game objects. And it kind of does what you want, where it's like, oh, I would make game object, I make more game object.
Yeah. Now we have Cantankerous Keepers, Henry.
Cantankerous Keepers is 5 and a green for a creature elf soldier. It has affinity for elves and is a 4/3. When this creature enters, mill 4 cards, then put all elf cards from among them into your hand. Wow, this is a good card for elves. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, this is an elves card, but my god, is it an elves card?
Oh,
Like-
Elves has already, you know, run Lead the Stampede historically, and then For the Ancestors, the flashback one that got printed. And, you know, generally, elf decks love having those effects because they just need. They have no shortage of mana. They just need velocity and putting more elves out. And hey, what if there was an elf that put more elves, and then those elves give you more elves?
And it was 1 mana as well,
Yeah.
essentially.
This card's got to be so insane in 4-of formats where you can hit more copies of it off of its own effect.
Oh yeah, this card is just really silly. For
And with
exactly
Wirewood
elves.
Symbiote. It's very good with
Yeah.
Wirewood Symbiote.
is this enough for someone to try elves? Because I don't know if this is good enough for Nadu.
No, elves on the lower end of playability these days, but cards like this really do help buff it a lot.
Yeah, and then there's some other. We didn't put them in the slides, but there's some other random lords and stuff for elves that if you really want your 20th elf lord effect.
Next up, we have Little Bear.
Yes. Yeah.
Little Bear is 2 and a green for a 3/2 creature bear with flash, and when this creature enters, untap another target creature you control. If that creature is a bear, put a +1/+1 counter on it. It's this fun card called Splinter Twin. Yeah, this is just in here because it's a Splinter Twin card. Obviously, it is a green Splinter Twin card, which is historically not what this has been,
Yes.
but it
There
is the
are
flash.
inclusive Splinter Twin
But this
cards.
is the first one that has flash
And is mono green.
and is
And
mono green.
The other ones
Yes.
were like Civic.
Yeah.
So this
They-
does mean you could play something like Naya Twin, which is not.
Mhm.
You previously always need blue.
Yeah.
And something like Naya, where you have a lot of creature tutors, you have Enlightened tutor in white. You have a lot of ways to assemble your combo.
There's like one mono green version of this that doesn't have flash.
Yeah, but the blue ones were always so good because they had flash. This one, and I don't know if this is relevant at all, but it is kind of neat that this both makes a gigantic creature and a bunch of creatures.
No, it makes each previous one bigger.
No, because you have to target the one with Twin.
Oh,
the one
yeah,
with,
the one with Twin,
gets really big.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is, I don't know if that's that relevant because how often do you not just win with infinite creatures with Splinter Twin?
Yep.
But it is it's a neat that it is there as an upside.
Plus, if you have a bear, you can put a counter on it.
Um,
your Beyond.
that's really all we have to say on this card.
Yeah, opens up some new possibilities for Twin, but Twin is not historically a deck that... There are some people who've done very well with Twin,
Yeah.
but not a deck that sees a ton of play, but maybe this opens up some
Means you
interesting
can
options.
you can time of need for your Kiki Jiki.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main main thing is just that a lot of Twin piles tend to be like 4 color, and this means you can maybe trim a color if you want.
Yeah, but blue is also the best color to have for the twin deck. So
So,
maybe not.
maybe
But
not.
it's interesting that it is now an option.
Also, the art's adorable.
Yeah, is
We didn't
adorable.
put the other bears on there, but I love all the bears in the set.
They're fantastic.
Now we have Woodland Weave Master, Lucky.
Okay, Woodland Weave Master is a 1 and a green 1/2 with Vigilance. It is an elf druid, and whenever another elf creature you control enters, this gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and you can tap it to add X mana of any one color, where X is this creature's power. Spend this mana only to cast elf spells and activate abilities of elf sources. I think this card is really good. It's not quite like a Priest of Titania or an Elvish Archdruid where it's going to make like 20 mana because you've got a bunch of elves, but it's pretty easy to sequence playing out a couple elves first, tap this for 3 mana, keep on going.
It reminds me of Heritage Druid in that it lets you play out a bunch of your elves first and they become effectively free because you have this out in play already.
Also, the benefit with this is elves has a lot of ways to untap creatures.
This card's a lot better with all of the lords and elves as well, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, so that also means it gets extra mana. Also, it's Vigilance and it gets really big, so you can shit out all your elves, play this, use more elves, untap it, and then hit them for a bunch. Also, abilities, the fact that it can activate abilities is extremely relevant for, elves has multiple like Anthem effects, staple do abilities on boards. Azuri, Allosaurus Shepherd. The fact that it activates abilities means it probably does pretty much everything you want.
Unlike a lot of the ways to activate Azuri, the +3/+3 trample one, this is one you can attack with and buff.
And buff, so you can get swing first, mid combat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's very sweet. That
Vigilance
probably
is
will just kill people.
Yeah,
I think
elves is worth revisiting. I think after this set.
And I think, look, Priest of Titania probably the best thing you could have on turn 2 in elves. The fact that there's something that's even remotely close that you can play
and
back up.
doesn't die to by masters and Renethix.
That 2 toughness is doing some work.
Yes. Next up, we have Bard, Heir of Girion.
Girion, yeah.
Girion.
Bard, Heir of Girion. My go?
Yep.
2 white-blue for a 4/4 legendary creature, human archer with reach and vigilance. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Whenever you attack, draw a card. This is a very good 4-mana lord. Like, it is a 4-mana lord, which is a bit rough, but it's a very good 4-mana lord.
It is a lot of stuff for 4 mana. And you get the card back effectively immediately. Like, sure, maybe they kill it before you attack, but like the fact that you can just attack with your whatever 3-drop or 1-drop you played.
If you're playing a deck with like a decent number of threats in it, if you play this onto a board where a creature is already alive, it's pretty likely to live to get an attack in. Like, the way that the play patterns in these kinds of mid-range decks and how they play into other mid-range decks is that, like, if your 3-drop lived, they probably don't have a removal spell, in my experience. More often than not, gonna land very strongly. It's gonna be really good following up Adeline.
Yeah. And the humans thing that we were talking about earlier, of like, this is a really good human to play as your curve topper.
Only so many you can play, but this one's.
Yes.
I think like 4 mana's a lot, but the bar for 4 mana is generally like have an immediate impact on the board, and this really does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, reach is really nice on your 4-drop because it means you get to swing in with your stuff, and then you can block their, random Dragon's Rage Channeler, things like that.
It's really good on a 4 toughness creature. Like, the bar for reach in this format is like, flyers are very frequently 3 power, so having 4 toughness on your reach creature is really good.
Yeah. Next up, another humans card, Bard's Company. 2 white, blue for a 2/3 creature human citizen. You may cast this spell as though it had flash if you control a human. Other creatures you control get +1/+1, and whenever this creature enters or attacks, recruit. So kind of reads as 4 mana 2/3 and a 2/2.
It's like the last card, but slightly worse.
Yeah, this is honestly a lot worse compared to Bard.
Maybe slightly.
I don't know. I think Bard is obviously better when you have a board already.
Yes.
But I do really like the fact that this, if you end up in like a kind of low resource state in the game where you're both top decking, you're low on things, this kind of just like builds a like very threatening board on its own. Where you could flash it in if you have a human, but if not, it's still you get to recruit, make a thing. The fact that it's on attack as well is really nice. You get card selection, gets to like dig you to more.
I think it's going to struggle in that game state a lot more than it looks because of the tension in recruit. Like, you're only getting the 1/1 if you're discarding a non-land card, and if you're in a low resource game, you really don't want to be doing that.
That's true.
But like it's maybe fine. I think that this card will struggle to find its way into those decks just because there are so many other 4s, and like it's doing a pretty similar thing. I don't think this makes very good use of flash. I think that like most of the time these cards you're gonna want to play before you attack. Maybe this makes sense. Maybe make use of the flash in terms of like changing combat math after blocks happened, but I don't know if that's a thing that.
It also makes blockers very nicely, where like you get to make a 2/2 blocker
That's
plus
true.
hits, and then like suddenly the combat math looks a lot different on when you're blocking their attackers.
The awkward bit there is that in order to do that, you had to not make use of the buff on your attack on the previous turn, which.
That's fine. Like I feel like in the game states where you are fighting a board battle more than just trying to kill your opponent,
Like maybe
you're
one
okay to
damage.
trade off a little bit of damage to be able to gain a board advantage.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, I think this card is probably, unlike Bard, is like not. I think Bard in any blue-white creature deck probably does reasonable things, although you obviously want kind of like a go-white humans-y thing. I think this card is very strong, but probably only really goes in the human shell because it makes just like a human that makes more human tokens and buffs your things.
Yeah.
I think you probably do want to be able to have the flash to be playing this. But again, I think like this theoretical like humans deck that we're talking about, this is a pretty strong card in that. Like, it's like I've played a lot of goblins and I have a lot of respect for the kind of like Rabble Master style like thing that just keeps shitting out more of the token that your deck cares about, particularly when it also buffs them.
Yeah. Like it's an option. I don't think it's gonna be the one you go to first.
Oh no, like I think this is really just for like I am playing dedicated humans. But then I think you'd probably be pretty happy with this card in that deck.
Okay.
Next up, we have Bolg's Company, Lockie.
Oh, thank you. Bolg's Company is a black red 2/2 goblin soldier. It has haste as long as you control another goblin. You can sacrifice another goblin by tapping it to add a black and red mana. This card is awesome. Skirk Prospector, in my opinion, one of the strongest cards in goblins.
Absolutely.
This is probably on average a little bit worse, but it has a much more relevant body. Being a hasty 2/2 when you want to just curve out and hit your opponent early in the game is great. The fact that the sacrifice adds black and a red is really nice as well. Adding 2 mana because
Adding black mana too.
adding black mana is also really relevant. So one of the interesting things is that there are lines you can do with Conspicuous Snoop that if you, for some reason, say you've drawn your Kiki Jiki or whatever, and you can't do that combo, you can do Snoop lines where you will put Skirk Prospector on top and then say something like Mog War Marshal that goes up mana if you've already got a board. Say you've already got some goblins on board, and you can kind of like chain your way with rituals towards casting Muxus. It's not like the default line you do, but the fact that this is a way to effectively it casts itself off Conspicuous Snoop if you have another goblin is not nothing, and then so you can go Snoop, cast this, that comes in, sacrifice another goblin, you can cast another 2-drop off the top. Say you have a Skirk, you can then cast your Mog War Marshal. Maybe then you have Skirk Prospector underneath that. You can start like chaining out a bunch of goblins. I know it's very interesting. It makes it very easy to cast Muxus because any other goblin goes up 2 mana. I think this is going to be a staple in goblins. Plus 2 mana in a deck that can win the game when it casts its 6-drop goblin. Very good.
Next is the Great Goblin.
The Great
Henry.
Goblin
Is 1 and a hybrid black-red for a legendary creature Goblin Noble. It's a 3/2. Whenever you put 1 or more counters on a goblin, orc, or army you control, the Great Goblin deals 2 damage to target opponent. Whenever a goblin, orc, or army you control dies, exile the top card of your library. You may play it until the end of your next turn. Seems good. I mean, like, that second paragraph seems particularly relevant for going through lines with Skirk Prospector and Bolg's company. The first paragraph, I think, is going to be a little bit trickier in a decent number of goblins' lines to actually kill them. It does, like, kill them through persist lines, I guess, but, like, most of those ones also killed them, so...
Here's my my like neat but not particularly good combo that I love, which is if you have this and Orcish Bowmasters, then cast Wheel of Fortune, your opponent dies on the spot.
That's very
Because
funny.
each Bowmaster trigger resolves separately.
Yeah, so
So it does 3 damage, yeah.
So it deals 21 damage to them.
Probably not the most relevant part of this card, but it's very cool. Like, the way it interacts with Bowmasters is very good.
Those are all cards you could play in Goblins if you wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know how much you want to play a Wheel of
I
Fortune.
don't know if you can. The main thing is I don't know if you can afford the point on Bowmasters necessarily. The points in Goblins decks are very tight. But yeah, I really like the Great Goblin mainly for the second line of text. Runevelt Hordemaster is a really good card. This doesn't have the Anthem effect, but it has a much better like body on its own. I'm struggling to think of anything that puts counters on things other than I forget the name of the goblin now, but the one that has a bunch of abilities from that it can exhaust from Aether Drift.
Oh yeah, the one that makes a dragon as well.
Yeah, anyway, that puts a counter on itself.
Yeah.
There's a couple incidental things that put counters. So, like, the first ability to me is largely flavor text, unless you did a radically different build of goblins. But the second ability is probably good enough that you can just play it. I will certainly try the Great Goblin. That one I think is less of a like guaranteed to be in the deck forever, like compared to Bolg's company.
Yeah.
But I like Runevelt Hordemaster. One downside of this is if they just kill the Great Goblin, you don't get the death trigger, which you do get with Runevelt Hordemaster. But overall, it seems decent. Definitely worth trying.
Sure.
Yeah. Next up, we have Dwalin Weapon Master, which is 1 and a red-white hybrid for a 2/1 legendary creature, Dwarf Warrior, with first strike. And whenever Dwalin enters or attacks, put a hone counter on each equipment you control. Each hone counter on an equipment grants +1/+0 to the equipped creature. So essentially gives the equipment +1/+0 in in as well as all of its other text. Yeah, I think this card obviously is very good in our beloved Dwarf deck that we'll talk more about later, but I think is quite good in just other Stoneblade variants. There's a lot of equipment that giving +1/+0 to them on top of what they already give is very good.
When I looked at this first, I was a bit low. The more I've thought about it, the higher I've gotten. I do think just like 2 mana 2/1 first strike is a very high floor. It has the weird effect of since it's an enters or attacks trigger, you want to have an equipment in play already, kind of, but also it snowballs later in the game when you've like it's very weird trying to work out when in the game this card is best, because early it's a 2/1 first strike, so it's kind of fine, and then late you got a bunch of equipment in play, so it buffs all of them at once, and that's also very good.
I think it's good at most points in the game,
Yeah,
which
it's
kind
like-
of
it's
adds it up to
very
being
good.
a good card.
It plays extremely well with skateboard.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Where you get to enter, make skateboard give extra attack, or what's the other boot? Lava spell boots.
Last of it, yeah.
Either of those, and then equip it to Barlin, and he gets to attack with 4 power and first strike. No, 5
right?
power,
So
because
we
it
have another
innately
one.
gives +1.
Yeah, no, this card's very
That's
good.
very
Yeah.
good.
It's also quite good with like formal wear.
Yeah. Also, and with Shadow Spirit, giving
Shadow Spear,
giving an extra +1 on Shadow Spirit is so good.
It's gonna be really annoying to track with GT.
With your 2 types of counters.
Yeah.
Oh god.
It's gonna be weird to track with Chainsaw because the counters do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they are different counters.
Yeah.
That card's good.
No, I think it probably incentivizes you to play maybe like more 1 mana equipment. Like if you're on the fence of like, do I play Shadow Spear or do I play Boots? You probably want both with Dwalin, like that kind of thing.
This card makes me a lot more interested in the 3 drops that make an equipment on enters, like Mabel and the other.
There's a dwarf we're going to talk about later.
2-drop in the set that makes it.
Yes.
Yeah, those equipment tokens are quite interesting. I'm gonna take. I mean, it's gonna be a while. I haven't need to think on those because I don't know how to evaluate them exactly, but I think they're very good.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, cool card. Put it in equipment decks.
Also, it's a warrior.
Next up, we have Thorin Oakenshield, Henry.
Woo! It's red and white for a legendary creature. It's a 3/2 with trample. Whoa! As storied. As long as you have an enduring story, artifacts and creatures you control have Ward 1. I think this card's good. I think you should play it in Boros Legends. I think having Ward 1 on your creatures is very good. It's so annoying for people. I think Trample 3/2 is a great base. I think that this card's a little bit slower than some of the other 2s you might want to play. I'm definitely going to be thinking about with like, if I come back to Boros Legends sometime soon, I'm going to be thinking a lot more about how I can try and speed up that deck. And this card doesn't really do that, but I think it will be good.
My god, is it annoying if you have Flowering of the White Tree in play.
Oh, it'll be so good. Having all your creatures have Ward 2,
Yeah.
it's gonna be great. I'm gonna have Cloud in play equipped with a Lava Spur boots, and it's gonna have Ward 6. It'll be great, and it's gonna trigger 6 separate times. I'm gonna ask each person each individual trigger.
Yeah, obviously also, it's a dwarf, it's really good in that deck, but I think just any Legends deck, or even just like an equipment deck too, like I don't think you need, if you have the artifacts trigger, because again, story is ridiculously easy to trigger.
I like it gives artifacts ward as well.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, like in your equipment deck too, it's like, put a bunch of equipment on Thorin, Thorin's hard to kill, the artifacts attached to him are hard to kill. He has trample, he wears equipment extremely well.
Trample's actually really relevant. Most Boros Legends does not have easy access to trample. It doesn't have like a card that it kind of likes to play trampled with.
In equipment too, just put like a cranial plating on Thorin.
Yeah.
It's like, that is very scary.
Because like the equipment that grant trample, like the best one's Shadow Spear, and it's a little bit awkward to try and weave into an equipment like package. So having innate trample when you have like a chainsaw that's buffed its way up to 6+ to give +6. Like, yeah, trample's really relevant here.
Pretty well with Dwalin too.
Yeah, it's really well with Dwalin.
No, card's awesome.
Yeah. Alright. Next up is Glamdring Bowhammer. Lockie.
Alright.
Glamdring Foehammer is a 2-mana legendary artifact equipment, technically. The equipment says instant and sorcery spells you cast cost X less to cast, where X is equipped creature's power, and it equips for 2.
Wow, that
and
sounds really bad.
None of that matters at all, because the adventure on Glamdring is Gleam of Death, which is a 4-mana sorcery adventure, where you mill 6 cards, and then you put all instant and sorcery cards from among the milled cards into your hand.
That's so funny.
This card is a one of the most like powerful draw effects for like pure instant and sorcery storm decks that we've had printed, where it's not drawing or like tutoring like something like Gifts Ungiven. It is just you get all the instants and sorceries in your top 6. I've played a few variants of like Gift Storm style decks with cost reduction, like Ral, Artist Talent, that will make the kind of like 4 mana, a lot easier to cast. The fact that, it's mill, so the other cards go to your graveyard to fuel things like, Delve effects or like Underworld Breach later down the line. Yeah, this card can draw you a lot of cards, and maybe like 1% of the time you'll equip the thing to a random creature as cost reduction when you have nothing else to do.
Can I interest you in equipping this to a VV?
So like, I'm sure if you have a VV or you have like a big prowess...
Kind of just VV, I think.
Yeah, VV's really the only one that I think you want to play alongside this card.
Yeah, maybe you're playing Bilbo, you equip it to that.
Yeah, it's true,
Like a setup
I
turn,
guess.
but I think the closest card we've had to this before was Pieces of the Puzzle, which was 3 mana, looked at the top 5, and you got 2 instants and sorceries from among them.
I was thinking.
And that card saw a lot of play in various formats in combo decks. And
Lotus Storm.
yeah, Lotus Storm, still playing Pauper Storm decks,
Yeah.
and Gleam of Death I think is a lot better. If you're in an all-in Breach deck, this is an Enlightened Tutorable draw spell.
No, that's a really good point, actually. This is an aligned tutorable draw spell, it isn't the One Ring.
Or you could get it with like the Mage that gets 2 jumps. I don't know why you'd be doing that. But anyway,
Yeah.
the point is, you can tutor for it with
Yeah.
some 0-point cards.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Next card is Elven Passage. This is a land that says tap, pay 1 life, sacrifice this land, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. You may behold an elf. If you do, untap that land. So it is just Prismatic Vista for elves.
Does elves want second Prismatic Vista?
I think so. I think they like having their fetches and to be able to thin their deck out of lands so that when they're going off, they're just drawing more elves. It's not like the biggest add to the deck. It's not the craziest add. I think it is nice that those decks have slightly more access to be able to play lands that fix them for like non-green colors as well, even if this isn't the best version for that.
There's also some green decks that are just dense enough on elves that you could reasonably play this as another Prismatic Vista, like some Nadu decks, for example.
Next is Hobbit Hole, Lockie.
Yippee! I love Hobbit Hole. This is my favorite card in the entire set. I love weird...
Do you want to read what it does?
Hobbit Hole is an evolving wild, so it is tap, sacrifice it, search for a basic land, and put it on the battlefield tap. And it has the best keyword in all of Magic, Halfling Cycling. For 4 mana, you can discard this card, search your library for a Halfling card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. And the keyword is the opening of the Hobbit. It is in a hole, the flavor text. In a hole in the ground, there lived a Hobbit. Awesome. I love the art, I love the flavor, I love Halfling Cycling. This card's awesome.
What is this finding?
Hobbits. No, okay, in all seriousness, I do think there are genuine applications for this card in the Abzan kind of like tokeny combo decks that we talked about.
Yeah.
I'll let decent number of those combo
There
pieces.
are
Sure.
a huge, for some reason, they've only really been printing halflings recently, but approximately 50% of them go infinite with some random thing.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I could probably list like 4.
Rosie Cotton, Samwise Gamgee, there's the new Bilbo and the Pippin that we talked about that both have those weird food replacement effects for food combo decks.
Yeah.
But the main thing is this just gets Samwise into hand for cat combo. Again, it's 4 mana, but
I mean,
An
it's
Evolving Wilds
an
is
incredible
not-
flaw.
yeah, Evolving Wilds as a floor on your utility land is actually pretty decent.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it gets a combo piece in a few combo decks. Again, it's I don't know if there's a deck that this goes into in 7 point right now, but if someone's playing a deck that has the Samwise combo in it, it's a pretty low cost of inclusion.
Yeah.
To just
I think
shoot up
it's
the
good
back.
to know it exists in the format.
Yeah, and there's, they're gonna keep printing halflings. There's, a Hobbit Commander-y thing coming out again later.
Yeah.
There's some existing Lord of the Rings Hobbits that are pretty good. I think it's, if you have a reasonable number of halflings that you care about in your deck, pretty reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
alright,
probably
sure.
too niche to run this just for like delighted halfling to make your spells uncounterable in like a really story
Also,
situation.
4 mana,
But like
yes.
4 mana is a lot.
But also, most of the decks that would play it would play Delighted Halfling. So there's like, it might come up.
Yeah.
It may.
It's for a really weird common that where the ability is mainly there to be like a funny meme. This is a card that I think will see more than 0 play.
Yeah. Sure.
Our final individual card for the set is the Lonely Mountain, Henry.
All right, the Lonely Mountain is a land mountain, which means it adds a red. This land enters tapped unless you control an equipment. It has 4 and a red and tap. Create a 2/2 red dwarf creature token. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each equipment you control. Activate only as a sorcery. I think this card is very strong. Fetchable utility lands that make tokens is just like an insane thing to exist, I think. Like, and those tokens are 2/2s even. Like, usually for 1 less than this, you would be getting a 1/1 on a non-typed land. The entering tapped unless you control an equipment is an interesting downside, because it means that, like, you really do only want to be playing this in a deck which has equipment. Maybe? I'm not even sure if that's true.
The
Honestly,
upside of a
honestly,
fetchable 2/2.
If I know like a 3-color control deck that is like Jeskai or whatever, I might just like those decks have run utility lands that are just like 4 mana tap make a 1/1.
It does depend entirely, I think, on how much of a downside activate only as a sorcery is. Like, that's the main gate for those decks, I think, is that
I don't think this will see play in a deck that doesn't have equipment. I
hadn't thought about sorcery.
I think you don't have to be necessarily a dedicated equipment deck, but if you have like a Cloud Clamp package with like pre-war, and maybe one other equipment, then this is fine. This is still good, I think.
if you play Skull Clamp, Skateboard, Pre-War Formalware, I think you are happy enough with this.
Yeah.
And I think if you play any more than that, this card's really good.
Yes.
I think this card is like, it's a really good reason to be in equipment as well.
I expect this to see a lot of play
In specifically the
like
equipment.
I think like probably like Boris Legends for sure. Equipment deck will play it. I could even see just like Jeskai mid range that has a couple, because like it's so easy to just put in like pre-war formalware and like one other equipment and it's pretty reasonable.
This card's gonna make me have to retool the entire mana base for Boros Legends, because I don't like red in that deck with the way that I build it normally, and like if I want to be able to fetch this regularly, I need to be.
Have all the red fetches?
You probably want to be the 7-point version, so you can play your plateau, and then you can play like Arena of Glory as well, because this now makes your Arena enter untapped as well. Yeah, I don't know. I think this card's really good.
Yeah, and also just a 2, like, I know it's like very obvious, but like a 2/2 is just so much better than making like a 1/1, like a lot of these things. By like a lot. It just adds up so quick.
And like the way that those equipment decks often lose is by having a bunch of equipment in play and having all their creatures get answered. Having a land that makes creatures just like is the main thing that deck wants.
Yeah, and if you're in that state where you have an equipment, any red fetch represents a creature that you can equip right away.
I've played Mirex in those decks before because I wanted a like land that could make a creature, and I wanted it to be like an artifact maybe sometimes, and also like I wanted my land to enter early and make colored mana when I was playing an 8-point version of that deck. God, this card's so much better than that. Yeah. It's so much better than that. I'm really looking forward to playing with this.
Yeah, and again, in the dwarf deck, it makes dwarves.
Yeah. So speaking of, now that we're at the Lonely Mountain, we can meet the dwarves. We are not going to go through every single card line by line of the dwarves that we've got up here. They are, for the most part, just cards that go in a dwarf deck. There are some that have applications outside of that, but I think for a while have had a bit of a meme of Dwarven Recruiter being a card which is just a 3-mana Goblin Recruiter for dwarves, and a card that we've always wanted to be good. And now we are almost at a playable number of dwarves. The cheap dwarves are the biggest issue, mainly 1 and 2 mana ones. There's a very good 1 mana one here, which is probably one of the few ones that I think has very relevant text for outside of a dwarf dedicated deck, which is the Dwarven Mauler, which says equip abilities you activate that target this creature cost 2 less to activate.
That effect's been on a few cards, but they've mostly been 2 mana. The only one which has been 1 mana, I believe, is Fervent Champion, which I technically reduced it by 3. But the important thing about this card is that means that you can play GT on the turn after it and equip GT immediately, and that's kind of the only way to make GT super playable in the main deck in this format, in my opinion. And having redundancy on that with Fervent Champion, which is much better than this for that effect, is still very, very good. Yeah, I think that card will be very good glue to that style of effect.
Yeah. I think this theoretical dwarf deck that we kind of joke about will also have to be an equipment deck, because pretty much every dwarf, especially in this set, really also care about equipment. But they printed some very good, like, the Dane is a very good finisher for this deck. Of the one, the 5-mana 4/5 that when it attacks, deals damage equal to the number of dwarfs you control to each opponent.
And has Vigilance and Haste.
So just immediately comes down and smacks them. He's just a great finisher, and a lot of good role players within here, like Philly and Killy being like a mana dork for dwarves with haste, and Philly the Pathfinder being one that makes you go wide a bit by adding more dwarfs.
Yeah, very
to the
good
board.
top end, and again, it's an enduring story where it's like, by the time you have 4 mana, you surely have a couple other artifacts or legendary things around. You get to come in, immediately buff your team.
Yeah, this is another good Moxamba deck, and another good Krakus deck, which is very good buffs to this, and a very good flowering deck. Will this be a tier 1 archetype? Almost certainly not. Is it just something that we're very excited can exist in the format? Yes.
Yeah, right. And I think it's like there are some good payoffs from dwarves from like as early back as like Kaladesh. But it was like, wow, there's like these 2 really strong payoffs and like no dwarves.
Yeah.
And just the fact that there's the density of like reasonable rate cards like Dwarven Mauler and Dane's Company and the Iron Hills Blacksmith, like that's really what the archetype needed. Is not like it weirdly was an archetype where like they printed the very strong payoffs pretty early, and then it was like, and there's just not the density, and I think just having that density and a couple more payoffs is like a big buff. So like I haven't yet found like a Dwarven Recruiter combo pile, but there are some interesting things you can do. So you could have Feely and Keely, like, so you could do a pile that's like Feely and Keely, make sure I got my mana, and then have the next 2 cards be like Feely the Pathfinder into Dane.
Yeah.
And then just go, okay, I have a bunch of dwarves. Next turn, take damage equal to the number of dwarves I control. Hit your opponent for like 5 and you swing it with like...
There is no combo plan, but it is very nice to just be able to play that Dwarven Recruiter and be like, I'm just going to curve out and only draw dwarves for the next few turns.
I think Feely and Keely Joyous is an incredibly strong card for this.
Yes.
Like, hasty 3/3 mana dork that makes 2 mana? That's so
Like,
good.
the fact is just, it's a 3 mana 3/3 haste, which is obviously not a great card, but it's not a bad card. Like, that's a very good rate.
Yeah.
And the fact, it then just casts all your Dwarven equipment.
Yeah, and like on turn 3, you can cast Feely and Keely and then cast something else. It casts equipment too, so like...
Cast a Chainsaw.
Yeah, cast a Chainsaw, cast your GT, it's like good. It's a really easy card to like work some other awkward cards in your hand out with it at the same time so that you just curve out nicely.
Play it on turn 4. Cast your Fable of the Mirror Breaker.
Yeah, true, huh?
Sagas.
Yeah.
I think that's the only saga that matters for this.
Yeah, probably. But
Yeah, very cool.
no. So that's all the cards we wanted to talk about and all the dwarves we wanted to talk about from The Hobbit. Definitely not one of the more higher power sets of the year, but certainly a set that we still enjoy and have a lot of interesting things we can do with.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there anything else? Anything you want to add before we sign off?
No, get your Dwarven Recruiters. Get ready.
I think that there's a lot to go, lot to try here. It's very interesting.
No, thank you very much for listening, for watching. Please, always welcome to any feedback or anything you may want to hear about or any cards you think we missed. But yeah, we'll be back again in too short a period for Reality Fracture and
Reality Fracture.
all the sets after that. Well, thank you for listening.